What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to another episode of the Garbage to Gold podcast. I'm your host, Joe Davis. Make sure that you subscribe if you haven't already, because today's episode, you guys are going to love it. I have an amazing guest today, the one and only Andrew WILTSE. Yes, Andrew fucking WILTSE. Is he crazy? Is he not crazy? Where the fuck is he even at? Well, I was lucky enough to track him down and do a full sit-down interview with him post the Manic episode heard around the world and shot live on Instagram. So stay tuned, watch the whole interview. It's gonna be fucking awesome. So here it is.
Champagne took a break from the brand on a rampage. I've been giving it brown. Shawty been solid sometimes.
Anyway, we're here to talk about jiu-jitsu. And ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Garbage to Gold podcast. I'm extremely excited today. I've got with me Andrew WILTSE. If you're a grappler, you know who Andrew WILTSE is.
For good or bad.
Yeah. Multiple time world champion at every belt, right?
The only time I didn't win the worlds was at white belt because I didn't get to compete.
Right,
I won the pans at white belt.
Okay. All amazing. You've competed at who's number one. Every major title that you can win in jiu-jitsu, you have it at one belt or the other.
Yeah, so I was number 6 in the world in the Flow Grappling's rankings at 185 for a while.
Nice.
So I've been around. I've done quite a bit of competition. I lived in a gym and competed full-time for more than a decade.
And you're originally, so your main gym, your affiliation would be Rodrigo Vaghi and the PSF gang?
Yep.
Okay. Awesome. So if you're into grappling, you definitely know who those people are, unless you live under a rock. PSF is probably one of the more accomplished gyms in the United States right now in no-gi grappling, right?
Mm-hmm, yeah. So if you don't know about Pedigo submission fighting, it goes by Daisy Fresh.
Yeah. Which was, the Daisy Fresh name comes from just an old laundromat, right?
Yeah,
That's what
we were just in an old laundromat. We had a deal fall through in a building that we were renting for a long time. The owner kind of sold it out from under us, and we needed to get it, we were getting kicked out basically. They were selling it out from under us, so we needed a new place to go. So we went to this little laundromat, and it was supposed to be a temporary thing, and then it ended up being a 5-year thing that kicked off a fucking a weird BJJ revolution in the sport.
Right. Yeah, dude, that's crazy how that happened. And how many people were training at PSF when you moved into Daisy Fresh?
So we always had pretty good class numbers. So there was always 25, 30 people in basically every class. Because everyone, really enjoys the training there. Everyone trains hard, and they're there for a reason. They're there to train hard. Mm-hmm. So the class numbers have always been pretty big. Even if let's say the gym had 50 people, you'd still have 25 people in every class. Yeah,
that's a good class. I've been to some gyms where you have 6 people, and that sucks. Especially if you're a white belt and there's 4 purple belts. So, you're going to get fucked up that day.
I've been in there. I've been that guy that's begging for training partners all the time, and that's why when I got the chance to live in the gym, and it was a dream. I literally used to tell people my dream was to be able to live in the gym and just train full time. And I didn't even know about jiu-jitsu competition at the time. I just wanted to do jiu-jitsu. I enjoyed it. I was thinking more in terms of doing MMA and stuff, but I always knew that I liked the grappling aspect a lot more. Right. So I think that was kind of my goal. But I used to fucking just do anything I could to keep training partners anywhere I could.
Yeah. Do you think that it's harder for you to get training partners as you progressed?
No. I mean, maybe right now because everyone's kind of wary. Is Andrew still crazy and what's going on? You know what I mean? And some people hate me for some of the things that I said or did when I was crazy.
We will get to that.
Yeah, I'll talk about that. I don't mind talking. I don't mind talking about the negative. I've always been pretty open about my mental health and stuff. And
yeah.
But no. The bigger I got in the sport, the more people wanted to train with me.
Yeah. No, I can see that. I can see that for sure. And we talk a lot about mental health on the podcast and stuff, and that's something that when I started this podcast, I wanted to talk to people who have had struggles or can help with mental health and stuff. I just did an interview the other day. I was telling you where a friend of mine from school had a kind of a manic episode, and he ended up getting shot and killed.
Very easily could have been me.
Yeah. And God forbid anything like that would happen to you.
But yeah, that's one of the things that I aim to do with this podcast is kind of bring some awareness to that and, give people a platform to talk and, get whatever emotions out they need to get out. But you're a very, very, very fascinating individual, a unicorn of the sport. There's very few people that, get to your level in jiu-jitsu because it takes an extreme amount of dedication. Like you lived in the gym and not many people can say they've done that.
No, living in the gym made it a lot easier for me to develop. And I've put a lot of thought into this. Like I make videos talking about jiu-jitsu mindset and training mindset and stuff. And there's definitely things that separate like top caliber competitors from the competitors that kind of like fall off, or the competitors that just can't seem to pull the trigger at the high level and stuff like that. So I like the Michael Jordan comparison. The Michael Jordan, he never thought about losing ever. You know what I mean? He was always the first to the court and the last one off the court. And he said every shot that he takes, he's doing it with 100% confidence. He thinks he's going to win every time. He always thinks he's going to make it. And little things like that, they build up and they start to form this kind of mental framework that you develop your skill as a jiu-jitsu athlete from. And that kind of becomes your foundation that will carry you extremely far as long as you have like the training you need and the partners, and you're able to pull the trigger on your own stuff.
Yeah. And we talked a little bit about that on the way over here. You were saying, about nerves. And like when I think of guys like you, I'm like, that guy doesn't get fucking nervous.
No, I get nervous all the time.
Yeah.
I'm an anxious wreck. I have bad anxiety.
Yeah.
Especially now. My anxiety is out of control.
But I mean, and that's amazing that you're able to, even with all that anxiety and all that, the things that you do struggle with heading into a competition, it's amazing that you're able to bury that down and still compete at a high level and win, where a lot of people that are feeling those types of emotions would probably crumble.
So it's like the fear, when I finally got onto the mat, became this adrenaline spike that would just push me to move faster and to think quicker and to pull my game off instead of letting my opponent pull their game off. So it's like fear can either bound you, like having a bunch of ropes around you when you're the one that needs to go, and you wait and hesitate and your opponent gets to go first and then you're on the back foot, or fear can push you forward. And it really is like it's up to you as a competitor to understand how to push through the fear and then use the fear to kind of advance your own agenda.
Yeah. No, that makes sense.
I was always afraid. And like I would get nervous going to like local tournaments where I'm basically an untouchable demigod.
Right. Yeah, where no one's going to be able to really fuck with you at all. And that's one of the craziest things. I've been aware of you for a long time. When I first got into jiu-jitsu, like I said, I mean, my first day on the mat, people were talking about you. And just like how amazing, like there's this dude, Andrew WILTSE, and he's like just this unbelievable wizard at jiu-jitsu. And, the more I kind of ask around to kind of verify that, it was verified. And that's just crazy, that you were able to get that good, that quick. And, passing black belt's guard as a white belt, like, some people say that probably didn't happen, but no, it definitely happened.
Though I did some fucked up shit to some upper belts as a white belt, and a lot of that came down to my mentality and how I approach things. Because I've been competitive at a really like ultra high level in a couple different stuff. I was extremely good at Halo 3 back in the day.
Yeah,
I used to make a lot of money playing online tournaments and shit like that. And with it came a lot of mentality. I played high level StarCraft and. I just learned all of these different mental approaches from all these different sports metas and stuff like that, strategy and tactics, and they all apply across the board. And one of the things that was really important to me was like, I don't give a fuck what you have done, what your accolades are, how good you are, in comparison to me. I don't compare myself to anybody. I have to be the one that's thinking about what am I going to do to attack you and win anyways. Because there's no point. You might as well just give up if you think you're going to lose.
Right.
It's like, if you're better than me, well, how do I win anyways? So we used to do these mass amounts of reps, really aggressively drilling out thousands and thousands of reps of stuff. And when I was a white belt, I was putting my passing game together, and my passing game ended up being the foundation of my jiu-jitsu. And I would do like thousands of X passes, and the guy would kind of reach up and post on your hip, or reach out and try to post on your chest or something, and I would grab their sleeve with two hands, and I would rip them up into the air, and I would jump into arm bars and stuff. And I would catch upper belts in that all the time, like black belts, because like who the fuck's ready for a white belt to move faster than fuck
Right.
into an X pass? You know, just like you slap hands, the black belt pulls guard, I'm already jumping into my X pass.
Yeah.
And I'm in their face, I'm aggressive, and then by the time they realize what's going on, it's too late. You
Yeah.
know, they if they didn't take me serious from the very start of the match, they would get put in danger.
Yeah.
You know, and it's a different mentality. I wanted to win way more than they were worried about losing.
Right. And I mean, yeah, that's definitely a mentality that's gonna get you pretty far. You know, especially in the like smaller tournaments and stuff, where people just aren't ready for that. You know, and as far as like being like a high level competitor versus like the hobbyist and stuff, it makes a lot of sense. If you're putting in 1,000 reps, you know, the black belts, he might not be doing that. He's a black belt.
Chances are very few people do that.
Yeah.
Very few people understand how to actually gain skill consistently in different stuff, and they think that debating, you know, the ecological approach versus rep drilling and stuff like that is doing them a service. It's not. You know, the answer ends up being more of a middle ground, you know, where reps have their basis in what they give you, which is different than what you're going to get from your more ecological approach. And people just don't put that much effort in. Most people just show up and roll.
Yeah, I've noticed that, you know, and I've been training for a long time. I'm not a black belt or anything, but I've trained enough at multiple different gyms. And one of the biggest problems that I see is like you'll come in and, you know, pick a partner and they'll do 2 reps and then they want to talk to you. And it's like, I'm not here to fucking talk. Like,
This is training time.
yeah, I drove an hour to be here. Like, can I get my reps in? And like, that's my thing. I think that doing 1,000 reps, if you can do 1,000 reps, do 1,000 reps. You know, it's not going to hurt you. It's going to only make you better. I think the big problem with people is, you know, they come to the gym and they use it as a hangout. And it's like...
well, BJJ is so social. You know?
Right.
So as an adult,
and that's cool.
It's so hard for people to make friends and make social networks and stuff when they're already an adult. You know what I mean? If they don't get it from work and they don't already have it existing from like high school and college and stuff like that, most people just have a few friends.
Right.
And when you join a jiu-jitsu gym, suddenly you have dozens of friends. You know,
Yeah,
and
that
in a
you're seeing
social
all the time.
environment. So I would say the majority of jiu-jitsu people that stick around for the camaraderie and that sense of kinship and having friends and just being close with their training partners and like advancing together.
Yeah.
You know? So it's like everyone has different goals. I don't knock people that aren't drilling their ass off and repping stuff and doing their hardest to get better. I just think that people who are stagnating and want to get better need to understand why they're not getting better. Because if you just show up and roll, you're going to get tougher over time. You're going to get stronger, and you are going to learn stuff, and you will advance at a pace, but it's going to be glacial compared to what, you know, segmented, targeted training where you like pick a couple things for 2 or 3 weeks, and then that's your hyper focus, and you really try your hardest to master those things over 2, 3, 4 weeks. You know, every day repping them out, every day going into positional drilling and sparring and learning as much as you can about them from the movements your opponent's giving you and reactions, coming up with chains, coming up with your own sequences, you know, and just like genuinely mastering those techniques.
Yeah.
Because you gotta think, jiu-jitsu is a marathon, but it's also something you want to sprint if you want to be really good. I don't want to wait 5 years to get good. I want to be good now.
Right.
So 3-4 things a month or every 2-3 weeks. It just depends. It's always up to you. You always adjust, you know, your own schedule. And, you know, after 6 months, you've got a lot of stuff you're good at. After a year, you've got a lot of stuff you're good at. And if you just continuously are doing that, where you just pick specific stuff and think, I want to master that, that is how you're going to never stagnate in jiu-jitsu. It's how you're going to continuously gain skill. You know, winning is about incrementally improving without pausing.
Right. No, that's awesome. Did you hear that? That was awesome. It makes a lot of sense. And do you think, you know, that's what set PSF apart from like pretty much every other gym, is just that you weren't the only one that was training like that. It seemed like pretty much everybody in that gym trained with that type of mentality.
Yeah, it was a culture of people that all want the same thing. Everyone wants to win, and everyone wants everyone else to win. So you had drilling partners that were available and willing to sacrifice their bodies for the cause and their time, and you just never lacked for motivation or drive, because if you didn't feel it, someone else felt it, and they could pull you along.
Right.
So the analogy I use is like, you know, for a lot of my life, I felt like I was, you know, I was pulling this sled through the mud by myself, and then, you know, with the primetime Daisy Fresh, it was like everyone was pushing the sled together.
Yeah, because Daisy Fresh, it wasn't just you. There was like 10 or 15 of you that were all just on a really high level and pushing it to that pace, and that's hard to find. Like that's really hard to find. Like most jiu-jitsu gyms are not like that. Those are few and far between. Where you walk in and there's 10 or 15 guys there that are training as if the world championships are tomorrow. Most people, if you go to a jiu-jitsu gym, you have your coach, and then there's a few people, and they're just there as a hobby. How does somebody that is in a gym like that, how do they get to the next level?
So they need to understand a fundamental principle, okay, in that they own their jiu-jitsu. They have a coach who's there to help them, guide them and teach them and show them stuff and structure the environment so that they have the opportunity to learn. But at the end of the day, you are responsible for getting better. No one else is going to make you get better. Your coach is not going to make you get better. You have to do it yourself. That means you have to find time to watch your own footage, record your rounds and watch yourself and see where you're fucking up and see where you're doing stuff right. You need to find time to watch instructionals and learn stuff and expand your horizon and get all these conceptual stuff that you just wouldn't be able to get on your own. You need to find time to drill and work with your training partners extra. You need to come into class with a goal and not just be rolling just to roll. You need to be rolling with something in mind, so you have something you're progressing at every time you roll. You see what I mean? So it's like, take ownership of your jiu-jitsu. It's yours.
Yeah.
And that's the best way for someone in an environment that's not ideal to get better.
Yeah.
Is to do it in spite of the environment. Fuck. It's on them,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I hear a lot of guys, that are wanting to get good fast, and they're like, man, I want to go train in Mount Vernon with the PSF guys, and it's just not realistic for a lot of people. If you're 3 hours away from Mount Vernon, the likelihood that you're going to go and train there every day is just, it's not likely. So luckily for people in Missouri, we have, Rodrigo and the affiliate gyms. So if you're not at a room full of, 10 or 15 black belt world champions that are all, gearing up for the next tournament, that's what you think is just, you need to go into your gym and use the resources that you have and really take ownership and just do what you can, because you're going to be in a room where not everybody's on that level.
Yeah, here's a secret to, it's not a secret, but here's a thing that it's a principle that should just dwarf all these other principles in your head when it comes to getting better in jiu-jitsu. Okay, we talked about ownership and stuff. How do I phrase this? I think I just lost my train of thought after I hyped that up like that.
Yeah, I was like, oh, this is going to be good.
Refresh me. That was awful. That was embarrassing.
We'll edit that out. No, like you were saying, if you're you have to take control of your jiu-jitsu, and if you're in a gym that is not PSF level, like say you're just at an average gym.
I got it back. Okay.
Yeah.
Everything in the end is your fault. Okay, so you always focus on maximizing what's in your control. Mm-hmm. And you look for dials that you can adjust that are in your control. And if you just can't adjust them, you can't make your coach do stuff that he doesn't want to do and structure classes how you want the class to be structured or stuff like that. So that means you need to try to see if you can get 5-10 guys from there that want to do extra training sessions. You could probably get permission from the coach for that, or you need to go cross-train in other gyms. You know what I mean? You need to look for every factor that's in your control. And that is what you adjust. And, when it comes to jiu-jitsu specifically, especially your own jiu-jitsu, I never think that, I lost that match because my opponent was better than me. I think I lost that match because I put my foot in a place I shouldn't have put my foot. And then he was able to grab it in a certain way, and that led to the sweep. And, it's like I look at every step of the chain where I made a mistake, because I don't give a fuck what you do. It's me that has to make the mistake. If you play an amazing, fantastic game, I just have to play a better game to win.
Right.
So take ownership of your jiu-jitsu, and everything is your fault. There are a couple of principles that really carry you to a high level.
Yeah.
And apparently right out of my goddamn head as soon as I hype them up.
Right. No, that's awesome. Yeah, you definitely have just a mind for jiu-jitsu and competition. I would say your mind is probably more just high-level competition. You could, I feel like you're the type of person, if it wasn't jiu-jitsu, it'd be something else. Like
everything I do, I try to be the best at.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I've streamed
very hyper-focused.
Like Dark and Darker. I was very, very good at Dark and Darker, and I was streaming it for a while. I played League of Legends. StarCraft 2 probably taught me the most about like competitive strategy and stuff. But like I like being very, very good at stuff, and I like seeing my skill progress constantly. And yeah, no matter what I'm trying to do, I'm trying to apply all of my principles to it.
So you mentioned, you were a part of Daisy Fresh, Pedigo Submission Fighting. That was like your main gym up until recently. Some things have kind of gone south, and that's a big reason why.
Are we talking about it?
The
elephant in
the
the
elephant in the room.
Yeah.
And then we'll talk about this, and then we'll kind of backtrack and get into some more lighter topics.
I'm going to try to avoid talking about a lot of the specifics that happened during the manic episode.
Yeah.
Because a lot of them are just inappropriate to talk about, and things did get out of control, and things were not okay. But yeah, I'm down to talk about the manic episode. Like I said, I'm just always. I try to be careful with my words and the things I say. I don't want to piss anyone off. And
I don't want to get you in trouble, and I don't want to start another war or create a bigger problem than there needs to be. Basically, just trying to provide, like what exactly happened. When did it all start? Like, what kind of pushed you over the edge where you're like,
so
hey,
I had something happen in my private life that pushed me over the edge. I was taking a light mood stabilizer called Vraylar, and Vraylar, it's supposed to work on bipolar and stuff, but it wasn't enough to prevent me from kind of kicking over the edge into the manic episode, and from there things just progressed downhill. My mental state deteriorated so rapidly that I was going to say it's insane, but that'd be asinine.
Right.
There were times I didn't know where I was at all in areas that I was familiar with. There were times I didn't know who the fuck I was. You know what I mean? I thought I was the prophet of God at times. I thought people were angels and demons, for real. I really, literally believed it. And things were making sense in my head that had no right to make sense. Connections, like my whole brain was basically having a quasi-seizure the whole time. And it made me, like, the more it progressed and the worse I got and the more I deteriorated, the worse my behavior got, and the more inappropriate the things that I said and the things that I did. And it was just all around awful. And I feel guilty about it all the time. I've had my therapist and people that are smart, but I'm going to say they're smart, but they're nice people, you know what I mean? And they've explained to me, as they've dealt with similar things that have happened in their lives or people around them, it's like, you didn't really choose to have the manic episode, which I didn't. I would never choose that. That was not a choice that I made at all. It was something that happened to me, but I have spotty memories of some of the stuff that I did, and even the stuff that I think I remember, I've been reliably informed that I don't remember it correctly even. So it's like even my impression of things that happened during that. So the whole thing's just like this gray haze of evil in my head, in my past. But like I didn't choose to have the manic episode. It really wasn't my fault. But that doesn't mean I don't take ownership and responsibility for the things that happened during it. I didn't really have a lot of control.
Very reasonable.
To say I had any control at all, it would be wrong, because from what I remember, the way that I was thinking and stuff at the time, there were no real thoughts like you would consider how you think thoughts now. Nothing was coherent and logical, you have to be in your right state of mind to really have agency.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And my state of mind was left.
Right.
It was so gone. It was so horrible.
Yeah, I remember.
I did so much and said so much that I just feel terribly guilty about all the time. Like, it bothers me all the time. I've got like PTSD thinking about the stuff.
Yeah.
And especially when people remind me of specific stuff that I did or said during the manic episode, I literally feel sick to my stomach. So
makes sense.
I'm very fortunate that a lot of the jiu-jitsu community seems to understand that I was going through a mental health crisis, and that the things that they were seeing come out of me was not me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because I've always tried to be a nice guy. The way that I was acting and the things that I said, it was just not okay, and it's not something I would choose.
Right. And I mean, I completely understand. When it first came across my radar and I was seeing what you were posting, I seen most of it on Instagram. I thought at first I thought you were trying to like set up a super fight, like you were playing like a
That
character.
would be retarded.
Kind of like I was like maybe he's doing some like he's just trying to set something up, like he's pretending to be crazy, and this is going to lead to some big super fight in jiu-jitsu. But then the more I watched, I'm like, okay, this. You were definitely
the real super fight was with myself.
Yeah, you were.
I was my own worst enemy.
You
Like,
were struggling, man.
I pushed everybody away. I lost so much in the Manic episode. I was like this Tasmanian devil just with blades in its hand, just whirling and cutting everyone around me.
I'm sorry you had
And
to.
the people around me, like, you know,
Can't imagine.
there's a very specific couple of instances where the people deserved it. And you know, maybe if I hadn't had the Manic episode, I never would have pushed them out of my life, or I wouldn't have done it in that way, or something like that. But for the most part, you know, people trying to help me were getting burned. So, you know,
Right.
it's like, and that's not okay. And I've apologized quite a bit on the internet already, and I'll apologize again. You know, I'm sorry for the way that all of it went down. I'm sorry for the fact that it happened, and I don't think it's fair to anyone that had to deal with it or see it or interact with it in any way.
Is there anyone specifically that you'd like to apologize directly to, or just kind of?
Oh, that if you open that wormhole, yeah, I feel really. One of the people I feel really bad about is the guys at Show Your Well. They didn't do anything. They didn't deserve me even talking about them at all. They didn't deserve to be associated with me for any of that. You know, that was unfair and fucked up.
Okay, and just anybody else or any?
Yeah, there would be a lot of people I'd like to apologize, but I've been trying to keep a lot of my apologies more private. And
Okay, I'm just giving you the opportunity if you wanted to do it. You know, for the listeners, great. If
the
not,
problem
no
is
big
so
deal.
many people are going to hear that and they're going to be like, well, why didn't WILTSE apologize to me?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
When I probably owe dozens
Right.
of apologies. You know?
Well,
It's
let's.
very, very difficult to remember even what I did and what I said. Like,
Right.
very difficult. There's people that have been like, do you remember saying this or doing this or being in this location? And I'm like, not even a little bit.
Right.
So I was like, I don't exactly know everything that I said or did. And I'm hopeful that some people will eventually reach out to me and give me an opportunity to apologize to them. But I don't.
Till then,
Yeah, I don't really have any social media accounts anymore. I don't
Yeah.
really do social media now, so it makes it
did
a
you
little
get
more
banned
difficult.
from Instagram?
Yeah, but all of my accounts on everything got mass reported. There was a subreddit that I found near the end of the episode before I got help that was dedicated to basically stalking me. And I saw one of the posts like, guys, should we stop mass reporting Andrew's accounts and shit? Every post in the subreddit was me, and it was
Yeah.
like, yeah, that was lovely, but. I mean, come on.
No,
I was basically a meme at that point. I was fucking.
Yeah, dude,
yeah,
you're
like, I
a big
understand.
you're a big name in grappling, and you know, kind of had a little bit of a meltdown, and you know that's the nature of the internet, man. People exploit that, and it sucks. And but I'm glad that you're better now, and that's why I was like so adamant on coming and interviewing you like immediately. Like I drove through a fucking blizzard. It was a 16-hour drive. So
Yeah, you had to go across the Mackinac Bridge with high winds.
high winds
That's
and
scary.
fucking pitch
That's
black,
scary.
dude.
You go over those grates and this car starts getting shifted left to right, and the lane your eyes just
Dude,
went off.
yeah, motherfucker, dude. I was like, this was the biggest mistake of my life. What the fuck am I doing? Anyway, yeah, that was awful. But what I was saying is, I wanted to come up here and talk to you directly. As soon as I saw that you were back on social media, I was like, I got to talk to this guy. You know, for one, I'm a fan. And like, I was just like, I got the podcast. I have the opportunity to kind of, you know, give him a voice to say whatever he feels like he needs to say, if anything. I honestly thought you were going to be like, fuck no, dude, leave me alone. But whenever I messaged you and you're like, yeah, sure, let's do it. I was like, oh my God, I got to go. So
Yeah, I'm really like open to talking about a lot of stuff. The stuff that I'm allowed to talk about, I don't mind talking
Right.
about. And
So,
I wish I had hid more of my life from the internet, especially during the episode. But that's never really been a thing that I've done.
yeah, I think it's better to just be open, honest. Hey, this is who I am. This is what you get. You know, I think people run into more problems when they try to hide who they are, or they try to put on a persona of somebody that they're not, if they've got to constantly play a character that they just are not. I mean, you see that a lot with UFC fighters, where a guy's relatively unknown. He's a talented fighter, but he's not getting a lot of press. And then all of a sudden they come out and they're calling everybody a fucking pussy, and they're just all of a sudden out of nowhere their attitude's completely different. and now all of a sudden they're getting, more press. But now you have to play that character, and you have to be that person.
There's people that really think that the manic episode was the real me, like me in the midst of a mental health crisis where I'm basically a full-on schizophrenic.
Yeah, I don't think that's fair. I don't think that's fair.
I deal with some negative comments. Like I got kind of welcomed back by the Reddit community. Like I said, most of the people on there are really positive, and they understand that what I was going through was like not me, and it was something that would eventually go away if I got the proper help, and it did. I did get help, and it did go away.
Yeah, if that was who you really were, I wouldn't be sitting here. There's no way.
How the fuck are people gonna look at me yelling at the sky that I'm the prophet of God, and then everyone's an angel and a demon and shit? And think, that's the real guy. Oh man.
No, and like I've been around you a couple of times before. Like when I first started training, we rolled together. You fucking destroyed me. And then whenever you came to Kirk's in 2021, you did a seminar. Or it might have been 2022. You did like a
little class.
A little seminar. I met you there. And then just being a fan of grappling and the whole Daisy Fresh thing. So let's talk a little bit about how you got to that gym. Because it's
very very hard to handle. With no training at all, I was vicious.
Yeah,
I mean, I was a person that you'd have to tase or sedate. So he took me and he taught me a lot of no-gi grappling stuff and kind of molded me. So he's a judo guy, so I learned throws and takedowns. He taught me just like I learned how to kind of do a single leg and a double leg, and I learned some jiu-jitsu stuff too. And all of it, I would say, was none of it was at a high level. Mike did his best, but it was like it was most of the time it was just kind of me and him, and I had that desperate desire to train harder all the time. I only had one gear. You know what I mean? I would go as hard as I could every single round, no matter who the fuck it was with. It just didn't matter. So I would injure him all the time too, and then it was really very difficult for him because he's a little older. It was difficult for him to keep up with his body. The spirit was willing, but the body and the flesh was starting to crumble a little bit. And when I was going to college, I got talked into moving down to Daisy Fresh. So I dropped out of college, and I went up and I packed all my stuff on Drummond Island. I just drove. It's like a 13-hour drive down to Mount Vernon, and I just moved in right away.
Wow.
So I spent very little time at white belt. I got my blue belt basically like right away. I spent time just learning stuff at white belt, and I did a couple of competitions, little small ones, and then I went and did the pans, and then I got my blue belt.
Wow, that's insane. So do you think it was more your work ethic, or do you think that it was the guidance that you were getting? Was your coach at the time, was his guidance, I'm losing my train of thought too. His, what he was teaching you, was it just that much better than everything else you had learned up to that point? Like, was it the moves?
This is going to be a part we're going to have to edit.
Okay.
You're bringing up like Heath a lot, and you're going to get me in trouble.
Okay. Sorry.
I mean like real legal trouble, like that. It could, because you know what I mean?
Okay. All right. We won't talk about that.
So you just edit all that out.
Okay. Yeah. Sounds good.
If you just phrase your questions differently,
Okay. Yeah, I'm trying not to say anything. So, moving past, what was your first big tournament that you did that was like how long had you been training at PSF before you did like your first major tournament?
So the first major tournament I did was the IBJJF Pans. I mean, I guess you could maybe think of like IBJJF Chicago as a major tournament.
Yeah, that's a big tournament.
It's a pretty big tournament. I had quite a few matches, like 5 or 6 matches, and for me, that's a decent amount, And both of those were kind of eye-opening to what it's like to do a real tournament, because before that, I'd only really done like a bluegrass and a little naga and stuff. And it's like, these are people that are here to fucking win too.
Right.
And, even though we're at white belt, some of the white belts are tougher than fuck, you know what I mean? They also maybe had some prior grappling experience in a different art or something like that, or they're like, they're high-level weightlifters and shit.
Right.
But yeah, that was fun. I ended up winning both of those. At the Pans, I had a really tough match against this Brazilian stud he came over all the way from Brazil. And I remember during the match, there was like, he had like 15, 20 Brazilians in the stands doing the soccer chant when he was going, and I was like, man, these are white belt.
Right, yeah. This team's got a whole following.
Whatever that team was, man, they were, kudos to them for fucking showing up and representing, you know?
Right.
But then I beat the fuck out of this guy. I beat him like 27-0. I mauled him, and like as I was getting more points on the board, they got quieter and quieter, and then our guys got louder and louder and louder.
Yeah, it's really cool watching, you know, some of your matches, just how like the team camaraderie, how everybody's, you know, when a point gets scored or when a move goes in your guys' favor, everyone's, you know, hey, you know, does that make a big difference whenever you're competing?
Knowing you've got the guys on your side, knowing that there's a bunch of people there cheering you on, and like getting a point on the board, and then hearing them go crazy, you feed off that energy. You do. I've done competitions where I didn't have anyone show up to coach me, and it's just completely different being by yourself and being isolated.
Well, so you would never train at or compete at like a Pans or a Worlds or anything without a coach or somebody cornering you, right? Or was there ever a time when you had to do that?
Who's number one by myself?
All by yourself?
Yeah.
Holy shit, that's a big tournament. Or that's a big event.
Well, you know? No, actually, I think one of the guys from the team came, but I think it was just one.
Yeah. And I remember we talked about that earlier. You said that was pretty nerve-wracking.
Yeah, I used to get really nervous about this stuff. Really nervous.
Yeah. I can imagine if, like, you know, who's number one, because, like, that's, like, a new kind of thing in grappling. And, you know, it's on a big stage. It's all over online. And, you know, if you just kind of going in there blind on your own, like, you know.
It's professional grappling. You know, they have a little crowd there. They sell tickets. You know, you got this big venue. The venue's beautiful. You get these big open warm-up areas and stuff, and they're separated by a little wall, but you can walk around and go, like, pester your opponent and shit, talk to them.
Right.
I always talk to my opponents, always. I would be so aggressively friendly to them.
No, that makes sense. Like, you're known more as a guard passer than a guard player, would you think?
So I think people kind of see me as, you know, my guard passing, they always think is top notch, but like I've had lots of comments and threads about my guard retention and my guard itself, because I'm very flexible.
Yeah.
And I very, very, very rarely even get close to getting past.
Yeah. No, the last match that I watched of yours was when you were competing it was when you won Worlds at Black Belt for the first time. Or it might have been Pans. It was either Worlds or Pans. And it was like you did like a shin to shin, like wrestle up on the guy. And I was with Alyssa watching that, and like she doesn't really know jiu-jitsu. I'm like, that was fucking awesome. And like most people watching jiu-jitsu probably wouldn't really be able to know like what you did there. But it was, for me, it was really fucking cool, you know. And you were playing guard, and that wasn't a pass at all. You were seated, and you just went like. Do you know what I'm talking about exactly?
I don't remember the sequence, not exactly.
It was real quick, and then he did get away, and he kind of spun out, and then went back. There was only like a minute left in the match, but you were already up. But yeah, it was like you kind of wrestled up on him, and just the way you did it was so slick. I think it was off of you had 2-on-1 on his arm, and it was like a shin to shin arm drag, and you got around almost to his back. And it was just like, wow, that was such high level jiu-jitsu right there. Like, and it was so clean. It was really cool to watch. And like a lot of your matches are like that, but that wasn't your buzzsaw passing. That was you playing guard. So
well, buzzsaw is a mentality, but I talk about buzzsaw passing because I focus on my passing so much, but it's a mentality. It's supposed to be applied everywhere.
Yeah. No, that's amazing. Is that something you kind of came up with just yourself? Like,
not really the phrase, but a lot of the conceptual way that I approach jiu-jitsu, I did. That relentless attack, you know what I mean? It was kind of like the team and me, but I had already been doing that relentless attack and thinking about it and stuff when I was up in Michigan.
Yeah.
You know, because I always thought to myself, what would like optimal winning strategy look like if neither person makes a mistake? You know, and it's like, well, whoever's attacking more is going to win. You know, so I came up with the idea, you got to be attacking first, attacking the whole time, attack. And the only way you can keep up with a pace like that is by having really good cardio and really good mechanics, which means you got to drill your stuff out and rep it out. You want to free up as much of your brain as possible to be thinking about what your opponent's going to do next and what you're going to do next instead of what you're doing in the moment. So the more you rep your stuff, and the more you really go into those positions and figure out, what conditional scenarios am I likely to run into if I do this kind of pass? He might do this, he might do this, he might do this. Well, now you've got those stored, and then you have automatic responses. You can just kind of apply it to the scenarios that you run into. You don't have to think about it at all. Right. So then you got a lot of freed up power to really think about what I want to do next. You can get multiple steps ahead of your opponent, and before you know it, you've got a functional buzzsaw. You're just going through people.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. So do you like to play? Is there a particular guard that you like, kind of like your go-to guard?
Yeah, I really like open guard butterfly hooks and like shin hooks and single X and stuff like that. Wrestle up positions, basically. Positions where it's easy for me to get quick sweeps and quick wrestle ups.
Yeah, your ability to wrestle up is pretty much second to none. And I think that's a big reason why you've had such success in the no-gi. That's another question I ask a lot of grapplers. No-gi seems to be so much more popular. Why do you think that is?
I think it's easier on your body. Grabbing the gi and getting your grip stripped fucking hurts. And strength matters way more in the gi than it does no-gi.
Yeah.
And strength at a distance matters way more in the gi than it does no-gi. Like you can flow, and it's harder to stall, I think, in the no-gi, other than just kind of pushing people away and just sprawling on them and stuff. But that's something you can deal with if you're good. So I just think that combination of factors, plus there's probably this part of people's brain that just shy away from the traditional martial arts aspect of stuff. Mm-hmm. And wearing the gi is more traditional martial arts, so you kind of like karate a little bit, and so I always knew no-gi would become popular.
You were saying?
Yeah, just for all those reasons, I think no-gi was always going to become popular. It's the same. The reason, and it's more natural. You're more like everyone loves the combat relation to jiu-jitsu, even though we're doing it as a sport for most people, and no-gi is related to fighting. It's just like MMA. Everyone's fascinated by MMA. Everyone wants to see MMA fights because they want to know what would happen in real fights, what a real fight's going to look like, and who would win depending on what style they're doing and stuff like that. Same thing. People know that fighting is going to be done mostly in T-shirts and clothes and shit like that. Sure, you can grab the hoodie, but it's not quite the same as having a gi on,
Right. Yeah. No, definitely
now,
not.
I have seen someone choke someone out in a fight with their hoodie. I did. He mounted him and cross-collared him.
Damn. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely possible. I mean, if somebody's got a collar and collar chokes, I mean, you can be effective. And you can even if you can't choke them out, it's still a controlling position. If you got a hoodie on and somebody grabs you right there, and they got control of you. It's going to be a struggle to get away from them. So it is good to know jiu-jitsu for self-defense. Is most of the jiu-jitsu that you learn at a gym self-defense based?
Yeah, I could pull off basically anything that I know in a street fight easily.
Right.
I'm proficient enough at it, and if you're not proficient enough at it, that's why you're failing more likely than what you're doing. It's like, no, I wouldn't go reverse De La Hiva and try to go underneath you on concrete, though.
No.
You know what I mean? I would just broomstick sweep you if I was on my back, or fucking do something. I'll bring you to single X and elevate you over my head because you're not going to be able to stop me in a street fight.
Right.
And just guard my face so I don't get fucking knocked the fuck out while I'm doing it.
Right.
But again, at the end of the day, street fighting is about not being on your back. It's about being on top and being the aggressor, being the guy that gets the takedown after the clinch and dominates, because when you're on top, you're not getting punched. And when you're not getting punched, you're not getting injured.
Yeah. No, one of your phrases that always stuck out to me, and I actually use it a lot when I talk to people that, when people hear that you do jiu-jitsu and that you've been around fighters and stuff, they, I get on the fight topic a lot in conversations with like random people. But one of your phrases always stuck with me when you're like, the ground is undefeated in a fight.
The ground is undefeated.
The ground that's one of the best.
Lose. And the first person to hit the ground usually is the person to lose, man. The ground does so much damage. I've seen so many street fights where people just bang something off the concrete and they're fucked up.
Yeah. Because you used to be a bouncer.
Yeah, I used to be a bouncer. Me and my little brother Bird used to work at a bar in Mount Vernon, and we would bounce on the weekends and try to earn some spending money and stuff,
Pretty crazy, like anything notable?
We got 4 or 5 decent scraps. I honestly think fighting is just stupid, though.
I mean, at a certain age, it's kind of like, let's not do this.
Because I'm very, very good at fighting. I haven't just done jiu-jitsu my whole life. I've done like Muay Thai and judo, and I've trained to be an MMA fighter. I've done MMA fights. My last MMA fight was a title fight. I'm not the best MMA fighter in the world, but compared to a regular human, I might as well be.
Right.
And
Yeah.
even the fucking fights where I just control the guy from start to finish, you still weird shit happens. You bang your knee off the fucking hard floor.
Yeah.
Or the concrete. I double legged a guy because it was literally the guy was so big that the only thing you could do is double leg them.
Right.
And I took him down, but I scraped my fucking knee off the concrete, and I was wearing shorts, and it just like scraped it to the bone, basically. It fucked me up.
Yeah.
And it was like before competition too. And yeah, so it's like, so you never know what's gonna happen. You're basically always gonna get injured in some weird way in a street fight.
Yeah.
And especially if you're throwing punches, they don't realize how much they're gonna damage their fingers and knuckles and stuff hitting someone in the head. And so yeah, I would advise people just don't fight.
Yeah, no, that's definitely good advice for most people. And it always blows my mind when people that don't fight think that they can win a fight. It's like I don't think people realize how unskilled at fighting they actually are.
No, nobody knows. I mean, people are afraid to get tested too. That's why those kind of people that have those fragile egos, their ego only exists so long as it doesn't get tested. They're anti-science. They don't want to experimentally verify whether or not they can fight or not.
Yeah.
So those people, they have a terrible time when they come in. But if they get the ego popped, most of them end up coming back, and they realize that they do want to learn how to fight, because fighting is clearly something they value. Your ability to fight is something they value in a human, especially themselves. So we probably have a lot of people in the sport like that. And the problem is when they get good at jiu-jitsu, their ego builds itself back up. This time, it's got shielding.
Right. So, you've accomplished, pretty much the highest accomplishments in the sport of jiu-jitsu. You've competed at Worlds, you've won Pans at black belt. Do you feel like you've beat the game? Do you feel like there's nothing left for you to accomplish, or do you feel like there's
tons that I could do? There's still tons of stuff I haven't won, and there's still people I could face, and there's a lot of stuff like that. The thing is, I don't feel like I need to prove myself to myself in the same way anymore. You know what I mean? Like for a long time, one of my goals was win either the Pans or Worlds from white to black, and then I won either the Pans or the Worlds at every single belt. And then it's like, okay, well now you come up with new goals. But no, I don't feel like I need to prove myself. I do think that I do want to do some competitions. I was talking to some people about signing up for some local tournaments at the last minute, so that no one knows I'm in the division really until I just kind of show up and they see my name on the board and they're like, oh fuck.
No, fuck.
And kind of sharpening my skills back a little bit, and then working my way up. I'm kind of in a transitional period in life. I got to get my life stable first after the manic episode.
Yeah. No, and that's great, and I'm really happy that you're able to do that, and you're going to go back to competing, and you're excited about competing. You don't feel like you have to do it. You're doing it because it's something that you want to do.
Yeah, I used to feel a lot of pressure, and now I don't feel any pressure. Now when I compete, it's going to be because I want to compete, and I think that my nerves are going to be less. The anxiety is going to be less. It's going to be different, more of a positive thing.
So you're 33 now.
Mm-hmm.
And how long do you feel like you're still in your prime?
Physically, I feel fantastic.
Yeah.
I feel like most of my injuries kind of healed up in the time off, and with the rehab stuff that I do, like my herniated disc in my neck and my lower back, they feel fine. The stuff that slowed me down before, I don't have any like lingering joint injuries anymore, and I'm still fast as fuck, and I've got a lot going for me physically.
So how long do you think you will compete before you're finally like, I think I'm done?
I don't know.
Do you have any idea? Have you thought about it that far?
That's planning for the future in a way that I haven't really been doing lately.
Yeah.
I've just kind of been
trying to live in the moment.
Living in the moment, especially not letting my brain drag myself back into the past, because the guilt from the manic episode and the depression and stuff like that is intense. It is fucking unreal.
And just from me, Sault Ste. Marie, it's too cold here, buddy. You got to get out of here.
Too cold, yeah. Too cold.
The snow, and the weather is just not conducive. Would you agree that kind of being here is just kind of a drag on your mentality, or are you kind of like, it doesn't really matter where I'm at?
Everyone makes what makes of things what they can. You're either looking the positive side of stuff or you're the negative side of stuff, and I'm trying to look in the positive side of stuff. So I'm not really looking at it like it's some negative dark thing or place or anything like that.
That's good. I always winter is hard on me because it's cold and I like heat. You'd mentioned that you're going to go someplace a little bit warmer. I don't know if you want to, talk about that or anything. That's fine. Sorry, we can edit that out if you want, if you don't want anybody to know that. But yeah, I struggle in places where it's like really cold and there's not a lot of sunlight, and it just seems like this is kind of one of those places where it's just always cold. You know, I've never seen this much snow. It's kind of cool, but I don't think
It's
I could.
cool to experience for
Yeah.
like a couple days.
Right, and then it's like,
But the cold is brutal.
yeah, it's really like it's like violently cold. It's just, you know, is what it is. But got more competition. Do you think you'll do IBJJF again?
Yeah, IBJJF have always been my bread and butter.
Yeah.
IBJJF tournaments have always been fun for me, and I always like the tournament format because like
What do you
doing
think-
a single match, you know, is one thing, but winning a tournament, you really deserve the win. You earned the win.
Yeah. Do you think you'll do any ADCCs?
If I win some trials, yeah, I definitely would have to earn my spot. I don't.
Right.
You know, especially with my reputation right now, I'm no expectation of ever getting an invite. You know.
So with like the trials, you have to be invited to any ADCC. I thought ADCC had like.
No, I'd have to win the trials.
Oh, that's right. That's a East or a West Coast thing.
Yep.
Okay. Do you have to? You don't have to be invited to the trials though. I don't know.
No, you can just sign up.
You can show up. Do you think that's in?
It's something I want to do.
Yeah.
I got really close a couple times, and I got injured really bad. My disc popped out basically, and within like a week of the trials coming up, and that sucked.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd like to do that. I think that'd be a fun one to do.
Yeah, I'd love to see that. Moving forward, like, you know, what's your plan? Yeah, I know you said you're kind of living in the moment. Do you think that you would ever like coach? Because I watched a lot of your videos, and your ability to break down movements, and not just some movements, but a lot of movements. Like, you have an exquisite knowledge of jiu-jitsu. Do you think that you would ever be a coach, or is that just not something that you're into? Or
No, I really like coaching. I'd like to coach. I'd like to run a school and be able to help shape a positive atmosphere that's really experimental with techniques and stuff. Coaching is a passion of mine. I put a lot of thought into how to be a good coach and break down technique and footage and help students. And I offer online coaching and video review breakdowns, stuff like that, on my Patreon account. Patreon.com/WILTSE But yeah, I've been doing it for a long time, man, and I enjoy it.
That's
so it's definitely
awesome.
something I want to do.
yeah, your coaching. I like watching your videos. The way you break things down and make things simple. You know, you have a really keen ability to like simplify jiu-jitsu. And I feel like even a very novice person can understand you know, where, you know, a lot of coaches are like Brazilian, so the language barriers there. That was one thing that was kind of tough when I first started training with Rodrigo, was just kind of not really understanding what he had actually said. And then as a white belt, you know, you're like, what did he say? How do I do that? But no, with your videos, I love watching your videos. I feel like I actually legitimately get better whenever even if it's just a basic, you know, how to pull guard, you know. You have a really, really good ability to coach. So I could definitely see you definitely doing that in the future, and hopefully you will.
That would be a lot of fun. I would enjoy that.
Yeah. Jiu-jitsu as a whole, you know, like the community and like the competitions, do you think it's like in a good place? You know, do you think the sport is progressing, or do you think it's dying?
No, the sport. Whoever thinks the sport is dying is insane. The sport is progressing for sure. New metas are getting established. People thought only leg locks was going to be the way for a while, and then people started doing a hybrid leg locking passing style, and then people started getting heavy on top again to prevent the leg locks, and then metas evolve based on this arms race between two different sides, and it's just continuously going on in jiu-jitsu, and it's going to keep going on because we have such a healthy level of competition and so many different competition environments of people to try their methods out at and see what works, and then people see that that's working, and they think either I'm going to adopt that myself and it spreads, or they think I could shut that down if I did this, and then that shutdown spreads, and then it's complicated, but the sport's getting pushed forward all the time.
And do you think it's headed in a good direction?
Yeah. I think the sport itself is heading in a fantastic direction. I think athletes are starting to make money, and with instructional sales and seminars and social media being as big as it is today, and the like who's number one and the platforms people have available, and then like the number of high profile matches they can get, and I think it's in a fantastic spot.
That's good. Yeah, I agree. I think that there's some, some different opinions out there. I've talked to some other grapplers that, think that jiu-jitsu's heading in a good place, but they don't really know where it's gonna end up. I've talked to a lot of people that have complaints about, certain organizations. Is there a specific rule set or an organization that you tend to favor over others?
So I really like IBJJF points. I think the points are a decent litmus test of who's winning the match. And I think that you should get rewarded for getting those positions of dominance, and I think the point system is fine. I think sub-only is kind of not really my thing. I don't think submissions are the thing that matter the most in jiu-jitsu. I just think that they're like another form of control or another way of subduing your opponent really quickly or something or like forcing the match to end early if you have a clock running, but I don't think they're the end-all be-all of jiu-jitsu. A lot of sub-only stuff comes down to who has better cardio.
Right.
So,
do you still have the record for the most points scored?
Oh, God, I don't know. It was a lot, wasn't it?
It was like 150 points.
I didn't get that many, but it was a lot.
It was a lot. It was over 100.
It was against a friend of mine too, and he did not know I was going to come at him that way.
Yeah,
he started trying to not let me do stuff to him at the end, just by like keeping me on the back when I was trying to get off his back, so I could try to score more points.
Yeah, that was Cody, right?
Cody Kellison, yeah.
Yeah, I just met him at Kirk's not too long ago. Really cool guy. I'm going to try to interview him as well.
He's a fantastic guy, yeah.
Yeah, I think he's got a new school that he's working on. So stay tuned for that, everybody. Cody Kellison, shout out to him. Really, really nice guy, friend of my friend Tyler. But yeah, I everybody has like different thoughts about where jiu-jitsu is heading. I think overall, it's in a good place. I'm glad that people are able to make more money now, like you said, because 10, 15 years ago there wasn't any money in it. Mm-hmm. I mean, and guys are 9-time world champions and they don't have any money for it. Mm-hmm. Some of them went and started great gyms, obviously, and there's a lot of money in running a gym. But as far as your like competition career, there hasn't been a lot of money in it. Do you think that jiu-jitsu could ever be like an Olympic sport?
Yeah, I don't see why not. I'm not really savvy on what the pros and cons would be. I know we'd have to have a regulating body, and that's unlikely because we're not going to agree on one rule set. Jiu-jitsu has so many different rule sets, but I don't see why they couldn't just run in the Olympics IBJJF style. I think that'd work fine.
Right. No, I hope that it happens, and I hope that it happens soon. So. Why did you mention that you fought MMA too? Was there a specific reason why you avoided the MMA and just stuck solely with jiu-jitsu? Was it just a passion thing?
My passion is grappling. You know what I mean? I thought MMA was just the natural transition. And, I used to think in terms of getting in fights and winning fights, and being able to win a real fight in the real world was where I got a little bit of my self-value from, knowing that I could win a fight or not win a fight. And, it's not in a healthy way. That was just like toxic insecurity type stuff. My last MMA fight was a title fight, and it was against a guy named Ross Campbell, he was like 11-2, and I was 2-0. So he had a lot more experience than me, and it was a brutal fight. I got kneed in the head so many fucking times. I had 2 black eyes and a concussion and shit afterwards. I won the fight. In the third round, I knocked him out on my feet stand up. I got hands.
What year was that?
I don't remember. I was a blue belt, I believe. Yeah, I was either a blue or purple belt. I'm pretty sure I was a blue belt, though.
Were you training in Mount Vernon at that time?
Yep.
Okay.
So yeah, and then the fight was so brutal, and it didn't have any fun with the fight. So it's like, I can have fun with a hard grappling match.
Right.
A brutal MMA fight where you're getting punched in the mouth and shit like that, I just figured out it's just not for me. It's just not what I enjoy.
Totally understandable. No, that's I train jiu-jitsu a lot, and there's times where I think like, man, it'd be fun to get in there and compete and do a cage fight. I've interviewed cage fighters, but man, that's just the risk versus the reward. Mm-hmm. You got to ask yourself, like, is the juice really worth the squeeze at that point? Because I feel like the brain damage, like you said, getting kneed and kicked and like taking head damage is just not good. And like you can have just as much fun on the mats without getting hit. You know, that's kind of how I see it too.
You can.
So, how long in are we? Okay. Keep going?
I mean, that's up to you. I'm fatiguing a little bit, but
okay. Yeah, we'll try to wrap it up. You know, what has it been like, you know, you've pretty much accomplished, you know, what you set out to do when you first started. You know, obviously you've got more goals and things that you're going to, you know, try to do now. Coming from, you know, small towns and traveling around and like your upbringing and all that, you know, how does it feel to have, you know, been able to accomplish so much in this sport?
So from the comments that I get from people that just tell me how I absolutely impacted their career with either like something I talked about in an interview or the way that I made a video, and like it's honestly, if I say more than 100 of these types of comments, I'm not exaggerating. You know, I mean, I get them all the time, and that makes me feel pretty good. You know, 'cause especially when I'm dealing with depression and stuff, and you know, like particular members in the jiu-jitsu community that are going to hate me forever no matter what, and like I've got a kind of a train of people that follow me wherever I post now, and they like do their best to drag up stuff from the Manic episode, and just like, look, Andrew's a monster, and it's like. That kind of stuff, you know, eats at me a little bit. It makes me feel bad about myself, and then those people comment those comments, and it makes me realize that my impact on the jiu-jitsu community has been overwhelmingly positive outside of the Manic episode itself, you know. So it's like, on paper, you know, I've had a good impact, and that makes me feel good.
Yeah. No, and that's awesome. And I agree 100%. Like, everyone I've talked to has nothing but great things to say about you, and they know that, you know, the struggles that you have with mental health are not, you know, that doesn't really define you. That's not really who you are. You know, and, you know, I follow you on social media. I watch your videos too, and everybody comments, you know, how you've helped them or you're making them better. So yeah, I mean, you've had an amazing impact on jiu-jitsu in a good way. I mean, you had a little bit of a hiccup, but I mean, I wouldn't say that is the most important thing, or that's going to outshadow all the good positive things that you did. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, like I said, I'm extremely grateful that it seems like you know, most of the people that are interacting with me, at least in the jiu-jitsu community, are very understanding of what happened, and you know why, and they're forgiving and stuff. So it seems to me like I have a chance that, you know, as long as I don't fuck it up again,
right?
I think that I'll be okay.
No, that's awesome. Yeah, man. I mean, that's. I feel like I covered pretty much everything. We got the point across, and you know, it was amazing to finally get to like really sit down and talk to you. You know, like I said, you know, I've heard of you. I've been around you just briefly, and I've always been a fan. So it was a real pleasure to get to sit here and talk to you and kind of pick your brain a little bit. Talk about jiu-jitsu. Talk about some of the things that you've been through, and you know how you get through things, and you're still pushing forward, and the future looks pretty bright for you.
I appreciate you coming down and taking the time to interview me. This has been fun.
Yeah, we'll have to get together again soon. Like if you make it back down to, you know, St. Louis or Missouri, or come to Kirk's, or, you know, something like that, that'd be fucking awesome. I know Kirk was supposed to come, but he bailed on me, little bastard. But it's all good. You know, I'd love to sit down and do it again with you. You know, hopefully you get a couple tournaments under your belt and get back to kicking ass.
All right, appreciate that, man.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I was stuck at the crib, I couldn't get out of my bed. Then I realized it's all in my head, and I can't